answer some of his questions, and it tries to warn him away from some of the bad things that could happen, the downside to this, and of course things are going off the rails, and things are happening, and there's kind of a demon presence in this, and you'll like that too, because there's some really great sensual stuff happening in that as well for you guys. So so look for The Double Frame by Rob Sepulveda. That'll be out later in the year.
Hey, Ryan, that's something you should watch.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So, hey, our time is virtually gone. Hey, I want to invite you back on, in June, towards the end of June, if you can. I will say that.
Well, I'll get a new phone.
Yeah, you need a new phone.
I apologize for the delay.
And, we're going to be a 3-hour format starting in June. So, we're going to be on from 8 to 11 Pacific time. But I also want to talk about, when you've been making these movies, some of the bloopers, some of the things that gone wrong, some of the things that maybe was kind of eerie and scary while you were making the movies and stuff like that. I wanted to get into all that stuff.
Definitely, because we've been in some locations. We had some things, even with Dark Realm. That lots of where we shot the stage show in the State Theater in and that's there was lots of rumors about that being haunted, and there's a few stories about that, of some creepy stuff happening there as we were shooting Dark Realm in there.
Well,
and that was out in South Bend, Indiana. So go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I had another actor on it. It's been into some horror movies and stuff like that. And, he came to a conclusion after we did the interview. He told me, you know what? I never thought about some of this stuff till I talked to you. And he goes, that kind of scared me now the more I think about it. One of the things he did a scene out in the desert, right? And they had some lady walk around. I guess it was some old remains of a building, big cement blocks, huge blocks.
Yeah.
And he was there, and it's supposed to have been like around the Civil War time thing, And he was dressed in the Civil War thing, but, everybody had boots on, he said. But they had him wearing tennis shoes, which didn't show up in the filming, that part anyway. But,
right.
This lady was going around collecting all the rattlesnakes, and there was a lot of them where he was at. And then he said that he was doing the one scene, and all of a sudden a snake went by. And then he started realizing after we're talking, he goes, you know what? I never thought about it. Everybody had boots pretty much up to their knees. Here I was in tennis shoes, and here's live rattlesnakes, going around.
Mm-hmm. That was why you wanted boots out there. I don't know if you have time. I have a quick story that's
go. I can.
Similar to that.
Since we're internet right now and on all the different apps, I can let it carry over for a few. That's no problem.
Okay. When I was working on my first film, The Item, it went to Sundance and everything. It's written and directed by Dan Clark, but we did a scene out in the desert out near Barstow, California. My whole scene kind of takes place out there, and I play this eccentric scientist who goes out to sell them this item in this container in the desert. They meet him out there, and they're supposed to babysit it overnight, and the client will come and give them a huge amount of money to just take that away. And of course things go off the rail. And just to give you an idea what the film is like, the people at Sundance called it Quentin Tarantino on acid. Which is true, and it's very awesome. So you want to check out The Item. But I'm laying on the desert floor, and they've done this whole scene where I get all shot up and everything. And there is a guy, it's hot during the day, boiling out there, and at night it's freezing. There's no cloud cover or anything. So this guy, they have one guy, and his job is I'm laying in the desert floor, and I'm just shivering. It's cold. I'm freezing. I'm covered in fake blood and everything. So this one guy comes up and throws a blanket on me, and it's another guy's job to come up around me because it was like springtime, and these little baby scorpions were hatching and coming up out of the ground and coming up, wanting to come up and crawl under me for warmth and everything. So it was this one guy's job on the film just to come up and scoop up these little baby scorpions and keep them off of me while you're shooting me on the ground, because I have to lay there the whole time because they're moving the lighting around and everything. They're like, don't move. We need a plate of this, blah, 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 blah. And so there I am, and I'm covered up, and I'm freezing, and this guy's catching little scorpions that are trying to come up and get up in my clothes and everything.
Ron, I will say this. Those baby scorpions. Now, Ryan, tell me if I'm wrong, but those baby scorpions have more venom in them than the big ones.
Is that true?
I don't know, but I
researched that for that other guest I had on, because he was doing a scene in a cave, and and they didn't even go in the cave beforehand and clean it out, and then he said he was doing this scene in this cave on the ground and all this stuff, and there were scorpions and there was these big hairy spiders, and I googled it, and it said that the baby scorpions, and same with rattlesnakes, the small snakes have more venom in them that can kill you than the big ones.
Wow. Well, that would kind of make sense as kind of a defense mechanism and everything to protect them from bigger predators and things. So that makes sense to me in that respect. But I told the guys in the film, I'm like, I hope you're paying him well, this guy that's keeping the scorpions off me. So he's, because I truly appreciated the fact that they had somebody keeping the little scorpions away from me. It was, that was one of those experiences like you were talking about.
It's the little things that matter.
It is. It's all the little, forget the champagne and caviar in my trailer. Can you just have a guy out there to keep little scorpions off me? Thank you.
Oh, yeah. It just, even to change the subject, this other actor, Paul, he was telling me he did a scene under an old mobile home that, probably no one's been underneath it in 20 years. And he had to go underneath it. And he saw these spiders and some snakes, all around. And I said, have you ever thought about like brown recluse spiders and those type of things, and black widows, and you're underneath there, crawling around? I guess, again, I hate to say it, I guess it's how much budget the director and the producers have to make the movie, I guess, that, I don't know. Of course, then
it is. I mean,
I guess also when you have the director say, hey, if you get bit by something, we're not going to stop filming.
Yeah. Well, there's that too, and it is. I mean, time is money. So if it's a smaller budget, you have less time. So, and less resources in terms of other people you might have on the set that are specifically meant to handle situations like that, like making sure that it's clear, making sure that it's checked beforehand, knowing what's where and everything. So, yeah, it is. It comes down a lot to the budget and the size of production and everything. So when it's an indie film, you're shooting fast. And a lot of times it's a much leaner crew than it would be with certainly with a big Hollywood production or anything.
No,
which has its upsides and its downsides.
Not talking about any movie, but a movie you're talking about, indie movie. Okay, what's the average?
Yeah.
Do you know what the average budget is for making a movie on those? I mean, compared to.
I don't know that there is one, especially now with digital filmmaking. So much of it is so much more affordable, which is why there is a huge glut of indie horror on the market right now, which is a good thing, as long as the filmmakers want to bring some production value to it. But I mean, a small budget seems to me, in Hollywood terms, it seems to be like anything under a million, anything like that. And certainly, I think a lot of indie horror could be in the $50,000 to $100,000 range, which is still a lot of money to a lot of people. But, in terms of movie making money, it's not a lot. But I've seen things that are made for much less than that, and what they call micro budget filmmaking, which is like, $10,000 to $15,000 or $10,000, $5,000 to $10,000 to make a horror film. There's a lot of those made now too. And if you're smart about writing and everything, you're not going to have a lot of names in them or anything like that. But you can, if you have a good script and you're smart about your resources and what you can bring in to do that, you can still, make a decent movie for that if you have written a script that facilitates that. If your story can facilitate not having, like where you can get a lot of natural production value out of sets and locations that already exist and things like that. And if you have good actors and a good, a good screenplay, you're good. But I've also seen guys that have gone out and unfortunately been part of a couple of productions, in my career that they were trying to make a movie, trying to make a feature film with nothing more than pocket change and lint. And that just doesn't work. You know, you can make a YouTube video for pocket change and lint. You cannot make a feature film for that. You know, you need a few bucks, you need a plan, you need a good script, you know, but you can't do it for nothing. You cannot and I've seen a few people try and do that because they were just, you know, such enthusiastic filmmakers, but it's not going to give you anything of value on the screen at the end of the day. So there's, in terms of indie film, there's a pretty big range in there.
Well, you know, one thing, just like, you know, you've been on a lot of different talk shows, you know, I started my career in commercial, you know, broadcasting and only got back into doing this here recently. But, you know, I have found that there is literally thousands of paranormal radio shows. Now, the problem is like that. I'm going to go back to, we'll say, late 90s, maybe early 2000s. Digital cameras came out. Okay. Before that, there wasn't digital cameras. There were film cameras, right? And you had professional photographers going out and doing events, doing weddings. Then all of a sudden, the digital cameras came out, right? Somebody went out and took a picture and say, oh, this is just as good, right, as a professional photographer. Next thing they're doing is, right, they're doing people's weddings. They go home and Photoshop, you know, manipulate it, make it look good. And it's the same way, I hate to say it, with the radio shows out there. There's a lot of radio shows out there, but they really don't have any content. Somebody goes out and buys a $20 microphone, plugs it in their computer, and goes on and does a radio show. It's not the same thing. It's the same thing with the movies. It's not the same thing. I was talking to a guest recently, because cameras have came down so much in price. You can go for $2,500 and buy a camera that it'll do movies for theater, you know.
You can go shoot on a DSLR, which is that's significantly less than even just
$100,000 less.
That long. Yes, well, yes, exactly. I mean, it started. That revolution started about 25 years ago now, in the cameras, and they've just gotten better and less expensive since then. But that's, I think that's the democratization of entertainment in terms of the internet and digital technology. Is you can have a worldwide audience, and it's very inexpensive to make, which opens it up to a range of new content creators, of new creators and new writer-directors. That doesn't make all of them good. The great thing about the internet is that we're all there. But that's the good, the bad, and the ugly. And then you're parked everywhere from next to somebody who has zero production value and next to an Avengers movie on the other side of you. So it's a huge range of everything that's out there. And like you say, it's all about, do they have the content, and do you have a decent production value, and a reach that will, so when your audience comes to you, are you giving them something of value? Are you giving them something that you cared enough to make and make good? Because you built your own home studio and everything. You've got this own studio you built and everything. So, you clearly care about the content and what it sounds like and how it goes out and everything. And I did too. I did everything I could in Dark Realm to beg, borrow, and steal, because it was my own movie where I was responsible for bringing the audience and the budget and everything else, along with my production partner Vincent Belancio, and we kind of split that, and and we both act in it, and we both co-wrote, co-produced it. He directed it, and then I kind of directed and did a lot of the casting and directed the stage show within it. So it's all about you have to then just because you can make something, you then shouldn't make it unless you actually give a damn about putting something of quality out there, something that's good for your audience, something that they're going to get something out of and walk away from with a good experience and having seen something or learned something that they didn't know before.
Well,
which clearly you do.
Well, it's the same thing. Remember I was telling you about the old B movies.
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
That's the problem you find nowadays. A lot of these people are making these movies on these budgets of several $1,000s, and they're making a full feature movie. But you look at the actors, you look at the plot, you look at everything on it, and it's basically a modern B version, of a comedy horror movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
In other words, it
there's a
doesn't
lot
tie
of that.
it doesn't tie together. It just